Hi, and welcome to eCommerce Unfiltered, your go-to source for bold conversations, unpopular opinions, and no-fluff insights that challenge the norm in e-commerce. Real talk, real insights, and zero filters. We don't always agree, but we'll cut through the noise, tackle the meaty topics head-on, and leave the buzzwords at the door. And we have an excellent episode in store for you today. Emily Pfeiffer, she's a principal analyst at Forrester Research, where she serves as a trusted advisor on commerce tech to digital business leaders across the globe. Emily, thanks for joining today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
And Pavan Sundar, co-founder and CEO of Netcore Unboxed, our host. Pavan, take it away.
All right, thanks, Nick. Thanks, Emily, for joining in. I think for all of us who are going to listen in, it's especially, it's really good that, Emily, you are joining and we're doing this first episode. You know, you have published a whole bunch of things. I would say can be categorized not just as bold, but you've taken some unpopular opinions. You've been really bold about on your takes, and in my opinion, you're the perfect, I would say, guest to kickstart our whole podcast series. So thank you again. Why don't we start with the report you published, which was for 2025. I think you had a bunch of predictions for 2025 for commerce and retail in general. You know, maybe why don't we kickstart our conversation? Maybe you take like a minute to just walk everybody through what is it that you are seeing from the market and what are your predictions for 25?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And thanks for your kind words as well. Boldness is kind of required at Forrester, but this level of naysaying is not. But the things that need to be said. So you said unfiltered, and I'm in. Thanks. So so predictions for 2025. We in digital commerce, digital tech, we're basically seeing these really big disconnects. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of disconnects between innovation and what's available versus what businesses are willing to do, where they're willing to invest. So I'll give you an example of one of them. We said that 1 in 10 major North American and EMEA retailers will update their store systems to like omnify their tech. And so 1 in 10 in our world is small. This is like very few of these retailers are going to do this. And when we say omnify, in this case, we're kind of talking about bringing the digital experience into the store, unifying the technology in a way that lets the experience from digital to the store and vice versa flow more logically, and just having tech that's kind of built for today, right? Rather than the things we've had in place for a really long time that we're trying to just kind of tack together. With the digital thing. So we don't see that likely to happen for many retailers in 25. We're also expecting maybe 20% of brands will add conversational commerce, that they'll have ways to kind of interact and shop that allow more natural language in the shopping process. And this is interesting to us because we think that consumers are ready and willing. So this is another disconnect where it's available, and we think consumers would use it. Customers in general, not even just retail. We think they'd use it. But it's scary, it's expensive, it's unproven, it's hard to do well, right? And so even though we have customers who are using, Alexa devices in their houses, they're talking to their phones, they're really used to kind of voice that way, and they're getting more accustomed to natural language when it comes to searching and discovering product as well. We're just not seeing it, kind of the adoption as heavily as we'd expect. I feel like I want to explain that when we write about predictions, we are not saying what's definitely going to happen.
Right.
It's what we think will happen.
Sure.
Might.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not like, hey, we're going to call you 12 months later and now you're going to be held accountable for...
do that. No, that would be great. Yeah, we're really happy to go back through. But the point is, when we do it, we're going to say we were right here, we were wrong there. Right. We're happy. We do this a lot. We will go back, but we don't actually know that these things are going to happen. And it's really unusual for us. We do it every year, but it's the only research we publish when we don't know.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
only one that's not based on past analysis.
Exactly. If it's
And,
definitely happening, it's a trend.
oh, got
If
it,
it's
got it.
maybe happening, we think maybe, I don't know, but this could be then it's a prediction. And that's what
That's,
makes it more interesting. So
yeah.
I'll give you one more from the
Hmm.
list.
Hmm.
Another disconnect. We think about a fifth, which in this case is kind of a big number, of digital commerce talent. So the people working in digital are going to seek, but maybe not find more flexible, innovative new roles. This is a moment where there's a lot of kind of angst in the industry. There's a
Right,
lot of weird discomfort,
right.
right? And we've heard words like quiet quitting. We've heard these terms that are
That's true.
are new. Like that's not a thing that we used to talk about. And so in digital especially where things are tight and
Right,
it's more challenging, we're seeing some discomfort and maybe an expectation of greener grass, but there isn't a lot of green field out there to go to.
right.
So, the angst is there and maybe the therapeutic process of looking, but not necessarily the leaving.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if a VP of e-commerce is quiet quitting, I think the brand is
Yeah.
pretty much down the drain, I guess, looks like. Um, but having said that, Emily, I mean, one of the things we are seeing in the market, if I were to look at these predictions, I agree with some of them. Maybe not so much on a couple, and we don't have to get into that, but if I were to come up, let's say, and say, hey, what is our number one prediction? What we are seeing from the market, and we would love to bounce this off of you. I think the 80, maybe 90% of the growth that has happened in the last 12 months is just Amazon and Walmart. Everybody else is struggling right now. There was this huge high during the pandemic, and then with everybody shopping online, and literally year on year, there's a decline in traffic, and there's insane pressure on everybody. My prediction is, I'm optimistic. I think I think crisis will force everyone to go back to first principles, look for the most innovative vendors, look for the most innovative solutions, maybe hire the best people, like you just said. It might be harder for everybody to get a job, but eventually everybody is going to figure out a way to survive. But what do you think? Is that, I feel like a lot, because there's so much consolidation, people, bankruptcies. It's a huge pressure right now for the
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah, there is huge pressure. And I think we're kind of facing some inevitabilities
Right,
around retail prices.
right,
And it's kind of the cost of everything. I mean, money is expensive right now, and it has been for a while, right?
right,
Everything is.
right.
So, yeah, I think that we've got some tough days ahead.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe this is representative, over the past, I don't know, it might be 8 years or so at this point. We've seen the peak holiday sales moving earlier and earlier, right? It used to be like Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. And now
Right,
people are saying the words Black Friday a month and a half before, right? So, but we've seen it like edging its way earlier and earlier. What's
right,
interesting though is despite the fact that we're still doing that, what
right.
we've learned as an industry is it doesn't give people more money.
Yeah.
It doesn't put more cash in their
Oh, so
hands.
you're saying it doesn't really, so so you're saying even if this gets spread out for like a month or so, it doesn't mean that the retailer makes more money.
No, it doesn't. It literally does spread it out. And
Okay.
maybe that's appealing. I mean, the reason it's called Black Friday is because financially it's when businesses get into the black instead
Right.
of into the red, right? It's the day of the year when historically, typically, they get over their costs of
Mm.
goods for the year and they get into the positive.
Got it.
So maybe if we can pull that a little bit earlier, that's appealing from like a
Mm.
financial management perspective. But we have learned that it doesn't give people more money in the budget. It
Hmm.
just moves it earlier. And I mean, there are other advantages. If I can win the sale sooner versus
Hmm.
my competitor who waited longer to offer the deal, right? I can win the deal
It's a
from a
percentage of
competitor.
wallet. Yeah, it's just,
Exactly.
yeah, it's just that. Yeah,
But it's
makes
still the same size wallet.
right.
Yep.
That is true. So why do you think so many of these guys are struggling? What is the big reason? Are you saying is this supply chain, inflation, all of these macro issues? What do you think?
Oh, it's a lot of things. I do think the price of goods is an issue right now, and I expect it will get worse in the next few years. The past 4 years have been so unprecedented and so interesting.
Right.
There are some people who literally just stopped spending in certain areas where they had been spending before. There's been a shift in values, personal values for people, right? And so what they spent on, how they chose to spend it, some of it has come back, not all.
Okay. Like what do you mean? Like,
Well, so if we look in the early days of the pandemic when people were home, resort wear was rotting on the shelf and home improvement products were
gotcha. Okay.
flying,
Okay.
right?
Guys.
So
But
early
since pandemic.
days,
Okay. Got it.
yeah, but now we're in a position where a lot of it has come back. Travel is peaking again. People
Right.
are out on the road, so some of that is back to normal. But
Right.
there are still values. There's more conversation around long-term planning of your finances.
Right.
There's more conversation around protecting finances, right? So
Right.
and prices are higher and everything costs more. The cost of living is exorbitant. I mean,
Right.
the difficulty of getting into the housing market is harder than it's ever been. So I just think there's more of a lens on the lack of affordability in general.
Got it.
And yeah, to your earlier point, so much volume. I mean,
Right.
more than half, I think this is right, more than half of US online orders go through like 3 websites.
Right. Right.
You
Yeah.
know, so it's really challenging to it's challenging to be not one of those.
Yeah.
It's challenging to understand how to compete, how to win, how to retain. And, you know, I'm very commerce tech focused, so
Right.
super biased, but I
Right.
do think a lot of the answer is in the tech.
Yeah, yeah. Which was gonna be my next question because I feel like there's no way even the largest player can fight a macro trend. I mean, it is
Yep.
what it is. I mean, there's inflation, there is an affordability crisis, no question about it. Now the question here is, what can I, if I'm a brand or a retailer, what can I do to survive here? What should I do? Look, I feel there's been there's been another side to the last couple of years, especially during the pandemic, that not a lot of people have seen this and talked about, which is a lot of retailers and brands have been spending excessively on BS stuff. So hiring too many people, do also, bringing on software, doing things with the stack, not thoughtfully, but because it's a trend. It's a lot to do with, I mean, if you look at the market right now, it's like, oh, hey, AI this and AI that. Is it AI really? Is it going to add value? I don't think anybody has been doing that for a long time. I think people who are going to do that, being thoughtful about what products are what solutions and what problems, how do I prioritize, what are they going to add value, how can they actually improve ROI or not, cut things off, double down on things that are working. That, going back to first principles, I think is the only way out of this, given the situation, right? Emily, I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to like yes and what you're
No, okay.
saying
Yeah.
because I agree, but I also think the piece we really have to make sure we're thinking about is the experience of people. And we're used to talking about CX, right? Customer experience, which is
Right,
terribly important and we should be thinking about it.
right,
But I believe we need to give a lot more attention to EX, right? Employee experience, the experience of the user. And so in my world, I talk a lot about the usability of interfaces, how difficult or easy it is to use. And the naysayers, people who don't think it's that important, will say things like, this is what, so like, listen for this. Okay, these are the, something's wrong. They will say, it's only a few more clicks. It doesn't add any meaningful amount of time. Okay,
Gotcha.
that's number one. That's very silly. A few more clicks is frustration.
right,
I don't even want to do it because it's so annoying. I couldn't find where the clicks were because there are usability issues. It's not a few seconds. It never is. And it's not just that time adds up. It's the emotional factor, Okay. When it's a new solution with usability problems, you also have adoption issues. I've literally talked to clients who are like, we bought this new tech from a functionality perspective. It's going to do what we need it to do. I can't get my teams to use it. Adoption is a really big problem. Okay.
Right.
The second thing to listen for is there are lots of different experiences in our solution. Yeah, lots of different places to log into, different experiences, but it's for really different personas. So it's okay. And sometimes this is true. If you've got an admin in an office and a store associate out on the floor on a device, totally different personas, no problem. But when you have multiple admins in an office who have to log into different places to do different things, it's a little silly when it's from one vendor. It's silly because it's different solutions that their business has to maintain. It's different, and again, retention, turnover, retraining, right? All of that work is really serious. And where different businesses draw the lines between roles varies. So it's very common for someone to have, we say like the swivel chair effect, right? Where you have to just log into lots of places to do lots of things. So that piece of employee experience, I think, is terribly important. And adding technology that doesn't just add like efficiency on paper, but actually makes their experience better.
Got it.
Gamified, fun, easy, intuitive. It's a great way to keep people.
Right. Yeah, which I think I think this is really hard to actually execute though, Emily. I think the only question here is there are many ways to do it. There are better tools to do it, folks to hire and whatever. I think everybody up until now, there's unlimited money, capital was cheap, try everything, do everything, whatever. Now it's not going to work that way. You got to get more out of what you have, but also you need to be sure if you have good stuff or not. I mean, this just because it has an AI label slapped on it doesn't make it AI. I mean, it's like saying I use AI to deliver packages. I mean, that doesn't even make sense anymore. So a lot of that kind of thinking, I think people are being forced to go down that path. Like I think everybody's realizing this is the only way out, right?
Yeah, I hear it too. I think that, okay, so first of all, you and I both understand search really well.
Right.
And we know that AI has been in search for a very long time,
Right.
like a decade at least, right? It's
Yes.
not new.
Yes.
Generative AI is new to the mass market by a
Yes.
couple of years, and it does have very cool implications in this tech. But as you're saying, I hear a lot of, look, it's Gen AI, so it's better, full stop. And that is not right. It's just not. I've seen, I'll give you one example. I have seen tools in a UI. Now here I am saying like use tech to make the experience of the employee better, right? So tools in a UI where you can just sort of type in plain language what you want to do
Right.
instead of navigating to it and filling out the thing and let it happen. But when I've seen it demoed, I see it taking longer than doing it by hand.
Yeah.
And not eliminating the manual process because you then have to click to go to that section. You have to go through and see what it did. If your prompt wasn't very well engineered and super thorough, then it hasn't done every little piece and you have to fill in that. I don't know that it's better. I kind of feel like it's not better.
Right.
And just because it's Gen AI doesn't mean you get the, yep, okay, perfect, Gen AI, right? So we have to be careful because leaders are hearing it. They have a perpetual, I don't want to be left behind. I don't want to miss it. Like we have to be out ahead of it. But I just would implore all of your listeners to make sure that we're thinking through the benefits, the real benefits of using it.
Yeah.
Why do we need it? We don't need it because it's AI,
Yeah. Totally.
right? We need it because it improves something. Let's see if it improves that thing.
Right,
And to
right.
really think critically about it.
I think a lot of folks up until now, let's try something cool, like AI cool, another cool thing. They're not seeing what their users or shoppers actually want. I'll give you an example, and it'll tee off to the next thing, which I really want to talk about, which is around commerce search. But I'll give you an example on search that seems to really, be mind-boggling for me. If you call up let's just say it's a store, it's omni-channel, it's selling in offline stores and online. We've got plenty of customers who do that. you call them up or you go to a store and you say, hey, do you have this in stock? No, I don't have it. Maybe there's a store 5 miles away. They might have it. There's somebody who might help, So there's a level of customer support, employee training. You need that kind of thing to help people find what they're looking for and not go to your competitor's store, right?
Yeah.
If you go online and search for it, it's just going to say it's not found. Why don't you just do this online? You don't need AI for this.
Okay,
You
I can pull out Forrester data to make your point right now.
Right.
Are you ready?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, 30% of consumers in the US are less likely to actually go to a physical store that they want to go to
Right.
if they can't check online to make sure the thing they want is there.
Exactly. I do that all the time. Yeah.
Of course you do, because you're one of the 1/3 of consumers. That's a huge portion of shoppers, right?
Right,
At this
right.
point, we just expect it. I want to know where it is. Okay, so now you're talking to an analyst who covers B2C commerce, order management, and search.
Right.
In-store availability and delivery promising is where all three of those things come together.
Yep.
And I really want that to get better.
Right. And, I have to go park, go walk in there, stand in that checkout line. The least I can do is just make sure it's there. And I don't want to call an IVR line and ask, and now they're going to ask me questions, which model, colors, no, I look up online and see if I can find it. It's crazy how many people don't do this. And look, I mean, some of the use cases are, I looked for my store, which is like a mile away, but it should automatically tell me, oh yeah, this store doesn't have it, but if you drive up, 15 minutes or so, you'll find it there. Why not?
Some do. Some retailers do.
Yeah.
Not all and not enough.
Not all. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they want to experiment on something else, which, I mean, they're probably spending $1 million on some consultant right now.
When people just want to know, what do you have and when can I get it?
Exactly.
What do you have and when can I get it?
Which is mind-boggling. So that's my, I would say, frustration and probably one of the many reasons why a lot of, or not a lot, many of the retailers and brands are in this hole right now. So anyway, one of the data points that we saw and picked up was that a massive majority of retailers have not implemented what we call commerce search, and you've created that category. There is a category which is search for commerce. There are lots of players. You were, I would say, professional and kind enough to put us as a leader. So are you saying all of players, including us, are operating in that 16%? Everybody else it's wild, wild west right now? Is like what's your take on this?
Okay, couple of things. Number one, I didn't put you anywhere. Like every other vendor, you earned your scores.
Super. Okay. Thank you.
Yep, there are no favors here. My family is all school teachers. I don't give you grades, you earn them. Okay, to be clear. So when we talk about a modern packaged commerce search solution, we're talking about certain products that are sort of new. They're sort of new. So the tech itself, in many cases, is not that new. But this market is really new because there's been a convergence the past few years, right? There's been a convergence that combined site search, mainly for commerce websites. We're selling a thing, but it's also for content, it's for service, it's for healthcare, it's for, right? Site search combined with recommendations, ideally personalized recommendations, which happen outside of search. So that might be the carousel, you'll also like, it might be in an email, it might be offsite, retargeting ads, anything that's product recommendations. It combines merchandising, which is choosing how my products are arranged on my digital shelf, which hopefully is not that much human choosing and a lot of system that's well configured, but merchandisers back away from the buttons. Like let's get our logic in place and let it do its thing for the most part. And it combines personalized product discovery processes. I'm careful with the word personalization. I don't think it's a noun. You don't just do personalization, right? It's an adjective, it's a verb, it's something that you can apply. So personalized product recommendations, right? We can personalize the results that we show to customers. We can also optimize the search results that we show to customers, optimized for the business benefit, personalized to what the customer wants, but with our business goals in mind always. So yeah, so this market is new. It's come together in a new way. 9 of the 10 vendors in my wave have had recent acquisitions. So there's been kind of a lot of upset in the market. So yeah, relatively few businesses have one of these solutions, but it's not like they don't have search on their website. What they have is what kind of came embedded within their commerce solution most of the time, which for a very long time was good enough and is absolutely not right now.
Right. Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more with that. I think the early part of the market was, I have something, it's good enough, not high top priority for me, and I'll stick with it. But I think over a period of time, the capabilities, especially the AI capabilities, have really accelerated, and there's a huge gap, between what comes out of the box, which is mostly, I would say, prepackaged open source solutions, and which are again SI driven, like agency driven. They're gonna have to do whatever needs to be done to actually maintain them.
And they make you kind of reinvent it each time,
Right.
right? So a lot of my clients are retailers, wholesalers, B2B brands, B2C brands, and they're smart and they're technical and they've been doing this a long time. And so there are many solutions that they had to build or customize themselves because when they were doing it, there wasn't something better out there. Legitimately, right? It was very smart that they did that thing then. And a whole lot of my job is the therapy sessions, helping people come to the fact that it was the right thing to do then and it's not the right thing anymore. That they don't have to be in the software business. They don't have to build from scratch. And most of the time, it's better than 80-20 in my opinion. Most of the time, there's something off the shelf in these areas now, in OMS, in search, that will get you so much of the way there. And the modern technology that we have in our hands now doesn't even require the heavy SI lift of really customized software. It's more configuration.
Yes.
Ideally in the UI, right? So there's so much more available off the shelf that gets us much farther. And here's the thing. When you're talking to one of these brands who, again, really smart, great technical bench depth internally, they know what they're doing. They've been around a long time. They're successful. They can do it. And what they build today would probably be really cool. That's not the problem. The problem is in 6 months, a year, 18 months, because they're not a software company and they inevitably will not maintain it and update it to stay on top of the very quickly changing expectations of the market. That's the issue. It's not a can you build it, it's a can you keep up with it to the point where it will stay as valuable as it was on day one. And almost always the answer is no.
Right. Yeah, these consultant SI driven approaches are way more expensive in the end when the underlying tech is dramatically shifting. It makes when you're moving from, it's like moving from a BlackBerry to an iPhone by paying a consultant $2 million to keep you up to date on email solutions. It's sort of like that, right? And if everything is shifting underneath, I think there is a level of what do you think the industry, which direction do you think it's going to move? Are people going to seek out better solutions? What's your sense? What is the 84% thinking and moving in which direction?
So we are in a very awkward phase in commerce tech right now. There's a lot of rhetoric in the market that suggests that everyone wants lots more little pieces of solutions from many different vendors, right? And there are lots of words for it, which we can, set up and knock down if you'd like. Right. But there's this idea that everybody wants more of this inevitably. So we did a survey. We did some research. And we asked digital businesses if they were consolidating their commerce tech to have fewer solutions from not as many vendors, or if they were adding more pieces from many different vendors. And almost the same number said each.
Yeah.
It was like 34% consolidating, 32% said adding more. The remaining, 20 something said, is that right? I don't know. The remaining number, 40 maybe, said we're kind of doing both. But the ones who were doing both strategically, simultaneously, were mainly in the APAC region and were in kind of a different stage of maturity. So I dug in with my data center of excellence. I was like, great, okay, so I'm just going to look at the folks who said we're doing either this or that. What's different? What's the same about those businesses? And it was kind of annoying because there wasn't that much different. They were just different companies. However, the largest companies, 20,000 or more employees, the largest businesses were meaningfully more likely to be doing one or the other of those things.
Okay.
And if you believe the rhetoric in the market, those big mature companies who are really technically savvy and, they obviously want lots more little pieces because they have very complex, but that wasn't it. It was like 18% more likely to be consolidating right now.
Got it.
So I would argue that this isn't random. They don't have 3 vendors and they want 1. These are folks who have been expanding for some time because the entire adventure of commerce technology is and has been from the start an expansion contraction exercise.
Got it.
So they've done the expansion, they're ready for the contraction. But it's so important to realize that everyone isn't at the same level at the same time, even at enterprise, and that we're really looking for this moment of like simplification in many cases. The let's just add endless complexity is not for most businesses, in my opinion.
Got it. So, in other words, smart money, smart retailers are good at finding good vendors, good solutions, and when there is a macro crisis or where there's stress from a macro environment perspective, they know whom to double down on. They know they are more likely to double down on the good stuff because they are good at, yeah. Okay. But my read on this is, I think, is more confusing than it appears. I feel like if you look at some of our own competitors, actually, and look, we love our competitors. Everybody's great, but we also don't like them in other aspects. But here's the problem, though. Everybody uses the same language. Everybody's AI. It sounds similar. What's the difference? And I'm pretty sure you've seen this. In any commerce solution, everything sounds the same. How is anybody supposed to even figure out what is a good solution and not? So our message has been, look, if it is so awesome, it should be easy to try. And it should be you need to touch and feel the awesomeness of it before you even buy it. If that's not possible, you're likely being sold something that's not as good as it appears to be. Would you agree, disagree? What do you think?
So it's really unusual historically for enterprise solutions to allow any version of try before you buy.
Right.
I am seeing it more now, but it's still pretty unusual. It's not impossible. I love it because I like the idea that we can put something in place and test it against what we hope we'll get out of it. And that's the most important thing, right? Because nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I would love to go buy new software. Nobody. They say, I have a problem to solve. There's something I have to improve, right? So like the biggest business driver now, for sure, I mean, probably always, but huge focus right now is just the ROI.
Yeah.
And it's short term, attributable, direct ROI. I am not seeing any appetite for 18-month-long implementation project, millions of dollars in. And what I hear from big businesses I talk to is those projects where I invest that much time and that much cost just to find out it's not really going to do the thing that I was promised it was going to do. I'm done. This is what drives them to want to build themselves because they're so disheartened by those processes.
Right. Totally agree. Which is why I think if they're not seeing a very accurate, direct, attributable ROI quickly and can try at least I would say a good significant part of the product beforehand to feel whether that ROI might get that confidence, whether the ROI might come in or not. I don't think it's worth it in the
Well,
especially
neither do they
enterprise.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally, absolutely. And which is a good segue to the next segment, which is surprising. I think you have really I would say you've been an outlier in one way. You've not called out a leader in your report for digital commerce solutions, which was a kind of a bombshell for us when we looked at that. I'm like, oh, okay, that's amazing, and I'm sure you've got some hot takes on why this is the case. So please let us know why is that. What's the reasoning, thinking behind it?
Yeah. So yes, I had no leaders in my B2C commerce wave, which is really unusual, like 1 to 2% of
Right,
waves historically,
right.
right? Closer to one, I think. Uh, I think I said earlier that this is a tough and awkward moment.
Mm-hmm.
The place where it's most apparent is in B2C commerce right now. So if we think about 2020 and what was going on for retailers, their stores are dark. They've got that resort wear rotting on the shelf, right? If they can't fulfill from store, they're in so much trouble. And they're trying to figure out how an OMS that was running 10% of their total orders is now running 100% of their total orders. So they're in a situation where they had to figure out very quickly how to pivot, how to make their tech respond in the ways that they needed it to, and how to find flexibility in technology that was completely inflexible. So commerce solutions were not flexible. They didn't let businesses move quickly in the ways they needed to when there was this sudden emergency. And so many B2C businesses replatformed. They made huge changes to their commerce tech ecosystem. 2021, 2022, huge changes. And so in my wave evaluation, I think in 22, the lowest rate of year-over-year revenue growth that I saw for B2C commerce solutions was 25%. 25% year-over-year revenue growth and up.
Wow.
But everyone did it then. Everyone who was almost ready did it. Everyone who was overdue did it. Everyone who was like scheduled. They all replatformed then. There was a lot of hiring, right? And so in the 2 years leading up to this most recent wave, I was tracking layoffs. I was tracking the change in the market from folks who were like, I did it and I don't want to do that again anytime soon. Replatforming is horrible. It's the worst. Nobody wants to do it. So a huge portion of the market already did that work. I get inquiries, I get calls from brands and retailers saying, I need a new commerce solution, help me pick one. Those calls fell off a cliff. No one's buying. So I had the job of writing an evaluation that serves as a buyer's guide when I knew the market was not full of buyers. So I had to figure out how to look at this market in a way that was most helpful to my reader. And there were two things that I did that really, I think, helped this be a more valuable piece of research. It's still a buyer's guide. The wave is by design. But also, this is now a retention guide. This is now a document that explains what you have and what you can get. So for instance, I looked at the features that I expect to find in a commerce solution, but that have significant overlap with other categories of commerce tech and that have standalone solutions in those areas. So for instance, order management, commerce search, right? Product catalog management. These areas where we have standalone solutions that we also evaluate, but where we expect to find some features of those categories within commerce. I'm not looking for a PIM. I'm not looking for an OMS, but I'm looking for the features I expect to find in commerce. In those areas, if the solution wasn't at least as good as the sort of lowest ranked enterprise standalone solution, they're not getting the highest score. Because my clients are coming to me and saying, I'm using this commerce solution. The search is terrible. Recommend a new search solution for me. And I'm looking and saying, oh, well, last time I gave them the highest score for search because compared to the others in the evaluation, it's relative scoring, right? they were better than the others. But I'm not helping my clients when I do that if it's actually pretty low quality compared to what you would get from a standalone. So that was a very big difference in the scoring. That's part of what accounted for this. But we also look at attrition, adoption. This had to serve as a retention guide. And I think retention is a really interesting conversation because it's both sides. It's the vendors and the businesses, right? Vendors always want to retain their customers, obviously. But this is a moment where gloriously the customers want to be retained, right? They're not looking. They want to stay. So it's this really kind of beautiful moment where I'm having conversations like, can you afford to stay? Can you afford to leave?
Okay.
Right? And more than ever, I'm seeing that we're going to stick.
Yeah, that's my reaction though is I feel like a lot of folks post the pandemic have been sold, I would say terms like headless and composable, when in reality they're just a different flavor. It's just another version of the old stuff, which is probably what you're saying. I think in ways that,
Oh, but let's talk about the term.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, why don't you give us your take on
Ooh, okay. So headless. So headless happened like 2019 or something. When we say headless in commerce, we mean the separation of the front end experience stuff from the back end commerce engine. Everybody might not know. Okay, so that's when we say headless, that's what we mean. But also it sort of means the user interface is separate from the engine. So maybe it doesn't even just mean the front end website or app. Maybe we mean the UI. Already we're confused. Also, it's a disgusting term. Okay. I actually used to have a fake, like, bloody necklace that I used to put on when I had conversations about headless because I feel like it sets the tone. You have to accessorize for your content. So, okay, so headless, it's really silly. The other problem with it is that it blew up in weird popularity, like it was the first time that decoupling had happened in commerce technology, which is very silly. Because old people like me who have been here since the beginning remember when commerce solutions had almost everything in them. Right? PIM and OMS and search and all of these things, CMS, content management, they all were part of this one big, I talk about Pangea, like the one big continent that the world used to have way back in the beginning. And they started spinning off into their own continents as they became complex enough. And that decoupling has been happening forever, for 25 years, 30 years, but in commerce forever. And so it's silly to pinpoint this one moment. But commerce tech is a lava lamp. I love my metaphors. Commerce tech is a lava lamp. It's constantly breaking apart and coming back together in different shaped bubbles all the time. So it's not just the splintering and modularity, but it's this kind of reforming in different areas. It's fascinating to watch. And so over time, this continues to change, this, the lava lamp bubbles. And so right now we're in a moment where, everything is more modular in lots of ways. But we've also learned as an industry altogether that going completely composable is a nightmare. Nobody actually wants a complete ecosystem of tiny little parts. It's too many moving parts. It's too much complexity. It's too much custom. It's too difficult to manage. So the conversation I'm having now is forget about composable, forget about headless, forget about having the size of the pieces somehow be some strategy. That's a silly thing to guide a commerce tech strategy. Instead, we're going to think function first. This is a deep conversation I have with my clients. What are you trying to solve? What is the technical function that will solve it? And where can you find that function? Because there's a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram of commerce tech. The bubbles have reformed in different ways. Where can you find the function? And let's start there and make sure you're getting what you need. And then in your overall ecosystem, find a nucleus, maybe two. Pick a nucleus. A nucleus in this case is a great tech partner that you can build around. Maybe it's a partner that has lots of functionality themselves, so you can kind of check a lot of boxes. This is the consolidation piece. Or maybe it's one that's modern and open and easy to integrate with and plays well with others. But no matter what they are and what they do and how they're built, every single one of them, if they're a great nucleus, they're a great
Right.
partner. It's a vendor you have today that you like. They're there for you. They're reliable. They do what they promised. And so you want to get more from them and you want to build
Right.
around them. And that's what I'm seeing. It's a sort of planful consolidation that focuses on the
Gotcha.
partnership.
Yeah, totally. I agree with you. On that part, on the vendor consolidation part. I sort of, I would say I want to bring up something that you talked about where it was we're moving from a big monolith and everybody, moving away, and now it's appears like everything it's too composable. It's too confusing. I feel look, we've seen software evolve. The thing here is a large chunk of the market today. I'll give you an example. Like I'll give a specific example. Let's look at Salesforce. Salesforce, when we implement commerce search, let's say somebody who runs Salesforce, they have to get the best search solution, not because of Salesforce, it's in spite of Salesforce. It's because they have to move around what Salesforce gives. It's not at all they're being sold headless, but it's not at all, it's not easy to implement anything that just has a normal REST API because they control it. It's almost like what the Apple style way of thinking. I'll control the entire ecosystem. I'll control what you see, what you can plug in. What is Apple doing now? It's now making USB 2.0. They're forced to. It's just how it is. The reality is, and I thought that headless and all of the stuff is a big promise for a lot more open things. It allows for choice. Okay, even if look, we coined the word discovery 10 years ago when we are bringing search and recommendations and everything together. What has search got to do with product recommendations? In reality, we sell that as two different products, but they can talk to each other with the same API, which is kind of composable. You can use it or not use it. In fact, you can use our search. Some of our customers use some other recommendation system, and it works perfectly fine. But stopping things and calling yourself headless makes no sense. I mean, this is a paradox, and so this is one of my pet peeves. I would say is yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're on the same page. Here's the thing. Headless usually means lots of heads.
Right.
It doesn't
Right.
make any sense. You mentioned the word
Yeah.
monolith. Okay, so I hear this a lot. Like, that's a monolith. It's bad. There is a kind of monolith that's bad, but I want to be clear about it because vendors say this about each other in ways that are not necessarily bad. Okay, so the underlying technology being monolithic, which means that you can't purchase,
Right.
deploy, pay for, manage, update the individual pieces you're using. You get the whole thing whether you like it or not. Right? And some vendors get around it by saying, well, I'm only going to charge you for the stuff you're using, but the whole thing is still out there and the maintenance of it and the lift of it and right, okay, monolithic. That's not great. Modular is great. I don't care about composable. It means people are using it in this weird marketing way. It just needs to be
Exactly.
modular. We're talking about modularity, right? That's all. And we already have a word for that. So like we don't need a new one. Okay. Cool. So that's a bad monolith. Here's a good monolith. One vendor, solution, or platform that has a lot of
Yes.
functionality. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be a tiny little vendor that only does one thing. It's great if you're doing that one
Right.
thing really well. It's also great to be a vendor with
Yep.
lots of stuff, as long as it's not a monolith. Here's another version of, people say it's a monolith, it's not. The user experience. If there's one big UI you log into to see all the functionality, well, then it must be a monolith. No. What did we just say? Users want a simplified experience. They want to have fewer places to log into to do
Right.
their work. So a unified user experience where they don't have to see everything, right? They see what the entitlements are for the company and they see what the permissions are for them as a user.
Yep.
Wonderful. Those are not monoliths and those are not bad. It's just the underlying tech. So I'm glad you said monolith. It's like another term we get to set up and knock down. Vendors like to badmouth each other, but it's just the tech that matters.
Perfect. No, absolutely. I think I would say we have a lot of agreement on this. We have we're getting close to the end. I think Nick has something fun before we close out.
Uh-oh.
We want to ask we want unfiltered answers to at least 2 or 3 of our questions. And we are trying to do this, and when we talk to anybody, we want to ask these questions. Nick, do you want to pivot to, just asking Emily about those 3?
Sure, I will do. And Emily and Pavan, great conversation, really great stuff. Emily, just quick, right off the cuff, quick unfiltered answers. What's the most underrated piece of tech in the current commerce tech stack and most overrated?
That's a really hard question. I think, well, it's not a piece of tech.
We don't need names. We can class of technology is good.
I think there's an underrated collection of functionality around that joint between commerce, order management, which is also inventory management, and search, right? So if you're a customer and you're shopping on a website, you're a consumer, it's a retail website, and you want to know, like Pavan, what you were saying earlier, I want to know what's available near me. Where do you look on the page? You know exactly where to go. It's like up and to the left, right? So maybe it's centered, but it's at the top of the filters or the facets. You know exactly what you're looking for. It's always there. Let's do a better job of putting it there, putting it on the PLP, putting it on the PDP, making it as obvious as we can. What is available, where, and when can I get it? Okay, so I don't even know that that's underrated. It's just underutilized. We need to be consistent about it. We need to have it always work. And a couple of years ago, we did research on it and found that at least 40% of the retailers we looked at were not doing an amazing job of it. So I haven't repeated that research, but that was pretty recent. Does that count?
Okay, that's good. That's good. What's overrated?
What's overrated? Okay. Ooh, this is going to be controversial. I don't know if you're going to agree with me. I think what's overrated is talking about AI models in the process of buying and selling search. I get calls from people saying, well, there's this underlying model, I can buy it directly from them, but then I have to build it myself. I can buy it from them, but they say they're using the model. This one is completely based on that model. Stop it. Stop talking about these under the hood technical things that your customers don't actually have to understand. Vendors in general, stop it. Right? Talk to them about the problems you're going to solve for them. Show them how you prove it. Show them real numbers about what you've done for customers. Hook them up with customers like them, not their competitors, the ones with similar business models, selling in similar ways, similar regions, similar needs. Show them what you've actually done and stop talking about the technical under the hood stuff they don't need to know.
That's fair. That's fair.
I like it. If you could optimize one thing in e-commerce, what would it be?
For whom?
For buyers or for vendors, we could leave it that one way up there. And I think you actually had a pretty good answer for it.
I mean, I would optimize the user experience.
Yeah.
I would want to look at the employees and what it's like to do their work. I am so sad about how rarely I see my clients bringing their actual users to vendor selection processes. They see it at the end, they get trainings. I want them in the demo, and I want them to either take the mouse or get screen control or say, do this. Don't watch someone who's super good at this thing and knows it like the back of their hand. Go, click, click, click. Wasn't that easy? Say, yeah, that looked really easy. Let me try it. Bring your users to the process, please. And it's not just because they'll be able to evaluate the usability of the thing. It's also because they'll have buy-in. They will have been a part of the process. They'll be sold on it themselves. You won't have to internally sell it to them.
That's fair.
I like it. If you had to point and click and convert on one thing in a shopping cart right at this moment and have it delivered, what would it be?
Oh, the new Yeti bags in the canopy color because it is so the best green ever. And they have it and it's black and canopy and it is hot.
I bet it's hard to
I
find
love
it
it.
without great search. So,
It's limited
and
edition.
unlimited, a
Uh-huh.
lot of description there to look for it. Yeah, but that's good.
Love
Cool.
it.
All right.
Love
Cool.
it.
Emily, I mean, great conversations. We love even all the topics that we discussed, we actually really loved your takes on your opinion and the thoughtful analysis that has gone, like a lot of research that has gone into, you're sort of condensing everything into some key talking points, but really, really appreciate that. And it's a good learning experience. Thank you.